Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Renato Castello, and I am the director of the City of Boston's Office of Participatory Budgeting. With me are my colleagues Cynthia Lin, Chief of Staff, and Blanca Teixeira, Grants and Contracts Manager for the office. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to share details about a contracting opportunity for nonprofit organizations to support our efforts to engage residents during Cycle 2 of Ideas in Action, which is the City of Boston's participatory budgeting process. Our agenda for today will be discussing participatory budgeting, defining the concept, and also talking about the office and Ideas in Action, which is the actual initiative. And we'll share with you this idea of the community partnerships model, and we'll also dive deep into some of the details in the proposal, the scope of work, requirements, proposal submission, and timeline. And at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. So we'll continue. So what is participatory budgeting? It is a democratic process where community members decide how to spend a portion of the city's budget. PB, as commonly known, started in 1989 as an anti-poverty measure in Brazil, and since then it has spread to hundreds of cities around the world and has been used to inform budgets from cities, housing authorities, schools, and other institutions. Participatory budgeting advances the city's goals around civic engagement and community collaboration by addressing barriers for public participation and decision-making in local government, elevating resident-informed project ideas that reflect their priorities and lived experiences, and bringing communities and city government together to foster a collective vision for Boston. So the Office of Participatory Budgeting was officially established in 2023 by ordinance. The office came about through many years of grassroots efforts by community groups across the city to establish an Office of Participatory Budgeting. So they collected enough signatures to put a ballot question on the elections of 2021, and over 60% of Boston residents voted yes on having an Office of Participatory Budgeting. So that's a little bit of the background on how this came about. There's also a participatory budgeting process focused on youth that has been around since 2014, which is different from what we're doing, but we're collaborating closely with them. The overall mission of the office is to provide an official point of entry for Boston residents to contribute to the city's budget process. And our strategy is that through partnerships with community organizations, collaborations with city department, and guidance from the External Oversight Board, we will host yearly participatory budgeting cycles to continuously engage with the public. And we have two purposes. One is to offer opportunities for the public to propose community-centered project ideas to address local priorities, and two, to gauge resident priorities to inform the city's annual budget process. So basically, as we engage residents for the PB process, one of the objectives is to identify these ideas that can be funded with the office's budget. But as we do that, and we hear from residents across the city about what they care about, all that information is shared with city departments, so it informs their future decisions about investments that they may want to do to benefit residents. So this is what the process looks like for us in Boston. This is the second year that we're implementing PB in the city. So we will start in July with idea collection. And this is a month-long process where we are inviting you to help us connect with residents so they can submit the ideas they want to see funded with the office's budget. We will talk about the different channels, but basically we'll have a phone line that people can call. We have an online portal that people can submit their ideas, and we'll have partnerships with the Boston Public Library that people can go and leave their ideas in a box in the public library. After we collect all of the ideas in July, between August and September, we will review those ideas internally and categorize them. We are not touching the ideas, we're not deleting ideas, all the ideas remain, we're just organizing them, because in October through December, we will bring back those ideas to residents to help us review them and also uh, select and draft the proposals that we go in the ballot. So that process will happen between October and December. And then January and February, there's the voting period where residents will vote on their favorite proposals from that ballot. And in the spring of 2026, that's when we start working with departments to fund those projects and implement those project ideas. So a little recap from what we did during cycle one, which was our pilot year. During that month of July, and we had to go a little bit into August just because it was the first time we did it, and we needed to get a little bit more momentum in letting people know that this is happening. We collected 1,238 ideas through these multiple channels that I mentioned. So those ideas, 15 project proposals were drafted by residents with support from our office and city departments. And in the voting period, we had 4,460 votes that were collected, and those came from online voting, and we also had an in-person voting. And out of this first cycle, we had $2 million to fund these ideas. So there were 6 ideas that we were able to fund in this first pilot. Number one was expand access to fresh foods in Boston, and that received $400,000. We had rat prevention initiatives in dense residential areas. That was $500,000 that was awarded to this idea. Programs to support incarcerated and formerly incarcerated youth received $250,000. Rental assistance for Boston youth ages 16 to 24 received $200,000. Support community gardens in neighborhoods with limited access to affordable food, $500,000 for that idea. And install benches of high ridership public transit bus stops in Boston with $150,000. So this idea of community partners, we are an office of 3 staff, and it's very difficult for us to be in all the neighborhoods, engage as many residents as possible. So we came up with this idea of contracting with community groups to help us connect with residents who would otherwise we wouldn't be able to reach. So we started in cycle 1, and we contracted with 9 nonprofit organizations to purposefully reach residents who experience higher barriers to engage in local decision-making processes. And our goal with this model is to leverage the expertise and the trust that you all have in the community so more residents can participate and engage throughout the various phases of ideas in action. And here is a photo with a couple of our partners in East Boston. We had about 60 people for an idea collection workshop. And this one was held fully in Spanish, but we have meetings in multiple neighborhoods across the city, also engaging residents to collect their ideas. So some highlights from that partnership. As I mentioned, we collected 1,238 ideas. And in particular, with this model of community partners, we co-sponsored 19 workshops across the city. And in those 19 workshops, we engaged around 560 people. 14 of those workshops were in person, and 5 of them were online. And in July, the main question that we were asking people is, how would you spend $2 million to benefit your community? So this is the question campaign that sparked people to say, we want to see this and, these types of things in my neighborhood or in the city. And all those ideas were collected, as I mentioned, through different channels. Another phase in which we relied heavily on community partners is in the visioning forums, which is part of the proposal development. So here is where we brought those ideas back to residents, and we asked them to review them and to prioritize what are the ideas they wanted to see on the ballot. So last year we hosted 3 in-person visioning forums, is what we call them. and we hosted them in East Boston, Roxbury, and Dorchester, and we had around 100 participants in total. Those 100 participants helped us come up with the final 15 proposals that were on the ballot for the first cycle. And here's a photo of one of the groups, the Center for Teen Empowerment, that hosted us with a visioning forum in Dorchester. And I'll pass it to my colleague Cynthia to tell us more about the details of the application.
Thanks, Renato. Hi, everyone. A little bit of an echo.
I hear you very low. I don't know if it's just me.
I hear myself, but there's also an echo in the background. Oh, maybe it's gone now. Can you hear me? Okay. Awesome. So we're going to go through the application for community partners for resident engagement. So in terms of the scope of work, like Renato was discussing before, for the first cycle, we had really great partners throughout the idea collection phase, and we really wanted to expand that opportunity to kick off for cycle 2. So in terms of what we're looking for this scope of work, we're looking to contract with nonprofit organizations to facilitate outreach, public education, and resident engagement during cycle 2 of Ideas in Action, which will be launching in July of this year. We are asking community-based organizations to propose a range of activities really based on your expertise, your capacity in assisting with some of this outreach and engagement so that as many residents as possible can submit ideas for the second cycle to be considered for PB funding. And part of this is also contract partners can work in collaboration with one another or with several organizations for any of the proposed activities. It'll just be, we'll need to know kind of who you're deciding to partner with and what that entails. Some of the proposed activities may include idea collection workshops, which we had in our cycle 1, or a combination of other activities such as door knocking, phone calls, tabling at events, or other outreach strategies to connect with residents where they are. In terms of funding, this time around, we are proposing that organizations can apply for up to $2,000 to implement these proposed activities. Funds can be used to help pay for staff time, for any kind of venue necessities, refreshments, and other accommodations to ensure that residents can participate. And for interpretation expenses, if they're needed and requested by attendees in advance, they can be covered by the City of Boston if contract partners cannot provide that accommodation for their residents. In terms of timeline, we are trying to stick to the July timeframe. So all activities that would happen would need to occur between July 1st and July 31st of this year. And one of the things that we will look into beyond just the month of idea collection in July is after idea collection, really based on organizational capacity and how successfully the proposed activities are completed, there may be some opportunities to contract for additional resident engagement during proposal development and PB voting stages, which will happen concurrently in the fall and then the winter of next year. So as part of cycle 1 for last year, we had this PB, what we call the PB portal. So it was an interactive online engagement tool. It was a mapping website that was multilingual, and residents were able to go on, select the language that they wanted to submit an idea in, and then there were several prompts that allowed residents to fill out, you know, the details of who they were, if they wanted to share that, and what their ideas were. This is and continues to be the preferred method for our office to receive ideas. And so we would like to work with, in this partnership with contract partners, we would want ideally you to encourage your residents to go through the PB portal to submit your ideas. However, if that is a barrier, we will also provide paper idea submission forms that would be available to residents if they want to instead write them out manually by hand, or if it's more convenient based on whatever your proposed activity is. However, one thing we will say is that if they are going to be writing these manually by hand, please be sure, and you will be responsible for submitting all the manual ideas on paper to the PB portal no later than Friday, August 8th, 2025. So we're just making sure that it's all in one space, and then all the paper forms along with evaluation forms would be needed to share. We would need to have those collected and sent back to our office, either through mail or in person, by this deadline as well. So in terms of materials, last year we had a couple of flyers that were really based on request. So this year we will also be doing something similar. We'll have some multilingual materials such as potentially flyers, social media graphics, and promotional items for community events in limited quantities. We'll coordinate with your office on the amount as well as the delivery and pickup prior to any workshop or outreach events that you will be holding over the course of July. For those who are proposing idea collection workshops, like last year, we did have a training in a toolkit, which we will be providing again this year. The toolkit will be altered slightly, and we're still kind of working through that process, but some of the items might include an agenda, a presentation, a facilitation guide, all of which is a template and should be tailored to fit the needs of each group. So you're welcome to kind of change that around as needed. And then we will also host a training sometime in early summer, likely in June, where if you're holding a workshop, you will have to send at least one facilitator or staff person from your organization just to make sure you're getting the debrief on how to use the materials, as well as answer any questions that you might have before the workshop itself. And I will pass it along to my colleague Blanca for the next slide.
Thank you, Cynthia. Hi, everyone. This portion is for evaluation and reporting for participants to support the office efforts to continually improve its practices and the overall participatory budgeting process. Contract partners are required to share and collect a short evaluation survey with residents as appropriate. The survey will be provided by OPB in collaboration with its evaluation partner. For contract partners, by agreeing to contract with OPB, nonprofit organizations are required to participate in a debrief call to report on the outcomes of their efforts and offer feedback on the contract partnership model. Based on the successful completion of the proposed initiatives, organizations can be invited for additional contract opportunities to support the PB process. Proposal submission. Organizations must provide a description of the following in their proposals. Description of the activity or activities and proposed approach. Boston neighborhoods and target populations. Estimated number of residents to be engaged with each proposed activity. Approximate dates where the activities will take place. A budget breakdown. Please see proposal submission requirements for the complete list of questions. Also, please note, organizations are also required to document their efforts with photos or videos and are encouraged to publish this content in their social media and or newsletters. Our timeline. The RFP was released Wednesday, April 9th. The RFP proposals are due next Wednesday, April 30th by Friday. Contract announcements will be made mid-May. Payments will be sent out after proposed activities are completed. The project period begins July 1st and it will end July 31st. Report debrief calls will be scheduled in August.
Like, I'll make a clarification. Thank you for that. So the proposals are due that Wednesday, April 30th by 5 p.m. And one thing to note is this is not a grant but a contract. And per the city's definition, we can provide payment after the activities are completed. With a grant, it's usually before the activities happen. So that's why payment will be done after the activities are completed per the contract requirements.
Thank you, Renato. How to apply? Please visit boston.gov/participate. Here, you can review the scope of work and application document. Applications must be submitted online via the Google form. For questions about the application process, contact pb@boston.gov or call 617-635-2381. And Renato has provided the links in the chat. Here, you'll see the full list of Cycle 1's ballot proposals. You also are able to find them at boston.gov/participate. I'll just read a few of them for you. Support in education programming for at-risk youth ages 10 to 13. Enhance access to essential items for Boston senior populations. Connecting Boston residents to health resources. And economic opportunities for low-income entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Blanca. Before we move into the Q&A, I'll share, this is a relatively new program in the city. We started last year in what we call the pilot. So we started this in a little bit of a smaller scale in terms of the amount of partners that we had. But even with that, I feel like we were very successful. We reached thousands of people, about more than 4,000 people voted towards the end. And we collected, over 1,200 ideas to begin with. And it was all thanks to partnerships with community groups who engage with residents on a daily basis. So we're really looking forward to expand that model, work with as many organizations as we can, so we can reach as many residents as we can. Another key thing is there are 3 moments of resident engagement during our PB process. So idea collection is one, right? We're requesting ideas from residents. Number 2 is proposal development, where we'll host these forums where people can come, review the ideas, prioritize, and draft proposals. And number 3 is the voting period. So for this particular contract, we are looking for organizations to help us with idea collection. And after we complete idea collection, we'll then focus on proposal development, and we will want to re-engage with some of these groups. And similarly with the voting process, because we'll need a lot of outreach and education at that moment. But with this, I know we shared a lot of information, so we are now pausing the recording, and then we're happy to answer any questions about the process or the application with you all. So let me stop the recording, and we can go into that.